Hi, everyone, and welcome to Off the Record, the sports podcast of breaking news, hard opinion, and a little bit of gibber. I'm Andrew Webster from The Australian. I'm joined here by my right-hand man about town, Phil Rothfield from the Daily Telegraph. Hi, Buzz.
Hello, Webby. A little bit of gibber.
Just a little bit
of gibber. I tell you, at your party on Saturday night at Icebergs, there was more than a little bit of gibber.
There was a lot.
You were dribbling by the end of the night.
I was not. You weren't there. I was actually the most sober one there.
Yeah. Great speech.
Thank you, mate. A bit
It
emotional.
was a very special party.
It was a special night. Thanks for being there, Buzz. Can still pull a crowd.
You can.
Oh, not bad.
Joey, Maddie, good old Hardo, the boss of Gallup, Buzz.
Wrap yourself.
Yeah.
Any atrocities from it?
Danny Weidler, 9 News.
I can tell you I was...
She's sure got a lot of mates in the media.
I get around.
Yes.
I've been, you know why? Because I've been around. I know one thing, I'm feeling every bit of my 50
Can I say you are looking every moment of your 50 years?
I'm feeling about 50, every minute of 50 years and 3 days. All right, now coming up on the show, I've got some news on concerns about whether the PNG franchise will be ready for 2028. We've got some breaking news on our colleague Michael Chammas being stiffed by his employer, Channel 9. We'll discuss your blow-up with Michael Maguire, the Broncos coach.
Yep.
And in our Warsaw Stories segment, we're both going to talk about our relationship with the late, great Jack Gibson, but you in particular.
Yeah, well, I've known Jack since the early 80s and before he sadly passed. And this isn't a feud one. I'm sick of telling feud stories because he was a wonderful assistant early in my career.
He was. Look, and just a reminder to our listeners of our promotion with Code Sports. You can get an annual subscription to Australia's best sports website for just $49. It's featuring Australia's best sports journalism. The Code Sports app is essential for every fan. So if you want it, guys, you can get to codesports.com.au/OTR to get a special discount on our annual Code Sports subscription, $49.
Good value, as I said the other day, Webby.
Hey, let's do our Champs and Chumps. Who's your champ of the week, Buzz?
I want to go Nico Hines. I'll tell you why I want to go Nico Hines, because he's such a much maligned footballer. And about this time last year, he was getting dropped from the state of origin, shattered his confidence, played ordinary, got injured at the back end of the year. Mate, he is dead set now justifying the $1 million pay packet, in my view. I know he couldn't ice the game against the West Tigers recently at Leichhardt Oval. Looked at the stats, number one in the NRL for line breaks, not line break assists, and number one in the NRL for try assists. This fella Justin Lang, who's a fitness guru down in Cronulla, he's Johnny Lang's son, Marty Lang's brother. He trains a lot of, Whittaker, the UFC guy. He trains Paul Gallen, And Nico said it's not the physical training he's done with him, but it's the mental stuff. And that he's got him playing sharp now, and his headspace is better than it's ever been. And for a guy who often speaks about mental health but has been plastered in the media, I'm really, really happy for him.
Absolutely. I think, the way he's responded since that Tigers game when he couldn't ice the field goals, it's I think it shows you. We forget that sometimes it takes time for playmakers to fully become the champions that they often turn out to be,
Yeah, and when you say couldn't ice the field goal, there was a couple of handy kickers at the Cowboys Penrith
same thing.
Couldn't ice it.
No, I get it. They're hard, but he had a few shots there, old Nico. But he's a wonderful ambassador for the game. Do you want to know who my champ is?
I desperately want to know.
I can tell. Now, mine is a surfer called Julian Wilson. You'll remember him, Buzz, as the guy that was in the water with Mick Fanning in South Africa when he got attacked by the great white shark. He walked away from the sport in 2021 to concentrate on his family. At 36, he's come back, and at the Gold Coast Pro on the weekend, he narrowly missed out on winning the final against Felipe Toledo, the great Brazilian. But it was such a great comeback story from Julian Wilson, and the way that he surfed and pulled out all stops, and he was firing up the Brazilian fans on the headland. It was
Is he
beautiful
a Gold Coast
stuff.
boy?
I don't
Snapper
want to be.
Rocks?
No, I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, right.
But it was at Burleigh. Yeah, so
yeah, right. Oh, Burleigh. Okay.
yeah, it was a great moment in Australian surfing.
Yeah,
Let's hope it
absolutely.
continues. We love a comeback.
Surfing spits out a lot of great stories over the years, doesn't it?
They do.
Sounds
Were you a
like
bit of a
beauty.
surfer back in the day?
Mate, I used to have one of those blow-up mats you'd take out there. Yeah, why are you laughing?
I could just imagine
Mate,
you're the blow-up
I
man.
was actually a very, very good body surfer back in the day. Back in the day at Newcastle Beach.
With that sort of body, I'm not surprised.
Yes.
All right, who's your chump?
My chump is Australian cricket. I'm filthy that reports in recent days that Sam Constas is looking particularly unlikely to play in the World Championship final against South Africa next month at Lord's. This guy was such an excitement machine, Webby, when India were last out here. They're talking about giving Marnus Labuschagne another chance, and he'll probably open the batting.
With Khawaja.
When Constas went on the subcontinent tour, they said, we'll send him home early, he's had a bit of experience here, So is he...
I know, either back him or not.
Yeah.
They seem to...
I love characters. And while I'm on cricket and talking of characters, there's another guy I want to salute because I think it's a sad day with the retirement of Virat Kohli. And I know he had a batting average high 40s. It was I read Crash Craddock's piece. He was a better bat than high 40s, but he struggled for 5 or 6 years. But the character and charisma of that man and his social media brought so many non-cricket people to that sport. And I loved how he bumped Constas down in Melbourne.
Oh, it was good theatre.
Wasn't it?
Oh, he loved getting under Australia's skin.
He did
on every tour he came to, and if it wasn't with the bat, because he wasn't performing during last summer's series, was he?
Yeah, but I think he hit 7 or 8 centuries in Australia.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal here.
And so
that's
farewell, Virat.
You've had a double chump.
Yes.
Do you want to hear mine?
I desperately want to hear yours.
You're very desperate to hear from me today, aren't you? I love it. Martin Luai, Jerome Luai's father, who during the Storm's 64-0 rout of his son's team, the Tigers, decided to put on social media, get out clause activated. Now, I know he has since said that it was all tongue-in-cheek and a joke, and he deleted it when he heard the media got onto it, but that is the last thing that club needed. It was the last thing that club needed. Things just started to settle down, just started to calm down after all the stuff around Lockie Galvin, and then that happens. Social media buzz.
Without wanting to pick a blue with you early on in this podcast, it's a care factor 0 for me.
What do you mean?
It's a father out of control putting up a message that he took down straight away.
He didn't take it down straight away.
He did.
Well, it got out in the media,
and it was
didn't
for the family.
It got out in the media, wasn't it?
It was for the family.
Well,
yes, it was embarrassing, but he pulled it down.
But if you are going to put something on social media, then it's going to get out.
Do you think it means that he's likely to go?
No, but it's just the noise that club didn't need, mate.
Well, I guess so. You
know what? You're just filthy that you didn't get onto it earlier and broke it.
Would you have written our newspaper? Of course I would have written it. Of course I would. I just thought you could have.
Of course I would have written it. Care factor 0.
Yeah.
That'll do me.
Yeah.
Righto.
Well,
Let's get to
what are we doing now?
Well, who would ever have thought? Who would ever have thought in this day and age that
you now and again need to be challenged? You do.
Do your best.
Yeah.
It's my birthday.
Yeah.
How easy. But you know what I mean? Like social media has become such a pain in the ass to report about. It's a pain in the ass for clubs. It never ends.
Oh, it's a shocker for rugby league.
It just creates all these other, this whole...
And particularly at the West Tigers. I actually think...
That's exactly my point, Buzz. So you're actually agreeing with me now.
No. Well, I actually think Richo needs to sit down with Jerome like Parramatta did with Mitchell Moses. And Parra gave Mitchell, he said, look, get rid of those bloody clauses and we'll chuck some extra coin in. And Richo, for stability reasons, should go to shut his father up once and for all and just play out the 5-year contract. We'll give you another 100 a year or something.
Well, maybe Richo could put it on Instagram, what the offer is.
I don't think Richo would know how to log on to Instagram.
He's on Facebook friends with Richo.
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram.
It's an older person's thing, Facebook.
It's Richo's demographic.
Are you on Facebook?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I haven't signed with TikTok, and I have 98,000 Twitter followers.
Good, because that's always the.
Do you want me to check? I think I might have hit 99. Actually,
care factor 0.
You move on while I check.
Please do. Okay, you heard it here first, Buzz. I have been hearing with greater regularity in recent weeks, and particularly since the Western Bears or Perth Bears, franchises got over the line, is that there are fears across the game, particularly from clubs and particularly from other stakeholders, that the PNG franchise is going to be up against it to be ready for 2028.
Wow.
Now, there's a lot of concern, and look, I'm not saying this to be a Debbie Downer on the NRL and the 2 new franchises coming in, but there's a lot of concern about how much or where the players are going to come from for these 2 new franchises. The PNG franchise was announced in December last year, joint media conference, Anthony Albanese, James Marape, the PNG Prime Minister. That was December last year, and it was, all warm and fuzzy, which is fair enough because it's the game's most ambitious project ever, but it's also... it's not one without many, many challenges. And I know there's been $600 million of taxpayer money thrown at it, but to set up an NRL, a professional sporting team in Port Moresby is a big ask. So far, there's been no board installed, so there's no real franchise as such. The main concern is the $150 million franchise, $150 million NRL village, the compound where players, families, coaches, officials are going to stay, and they're going to be safe in Port Moresby, which is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. There are nowhere near even starting that compound. No. And if that's to happen, it's got to happen soon. Otherwise, they're going to be staying in hotel accommodation. Now, I reckon that's a big problem for that franchise. Now, the thing is, I spoke to Andrew Abdo before starting this podcast. He said there's nothing to see here. Everything's in hand. But I know club bosses, for a fact, came off a recent call with Abdo and Volandis talking about the Perth Bears, and they felt like things were well behind schedule, and they have fears that they might have to push it back a year. What do you think?
Well, the Perth Bears, the Premier said last week it might be 28, that 27 wasn't locked in. As for PNG, this is something they have to get absolutely right, dot every I, cross every T. Safety is paramount for these players. And if you're saying this compound won't be ready or they haven't started on it, call it off until they're ready to do this. And if that means a delay, so be it. The other thing I'm concerned with is the pathway structure for both new franchises. Obviously, there's not a strong junior rugby league in Perth. North Sydney, they'll be relying on. But North Sydney Rugby League, they're about the size of the Roosters Junior Rugby League, which is, a handful of clubs and a handful of players. And so these things have got to be sorted out. And I know we're all anxious to get everything done by 28 because that's when the new TV deal kicks in and they need to go to the networks now and say, yep, we got 18 teams. But there is no point doing it unless we're on solid foundations, as solid as the Dolphins were, and having someone like Wayne Bennett there to... So I'm glad there is going to be a delay if we're not ready. You can't go in half. You can't go in 70%, Webby.
No. Not at all.
You don't. Apart from the infrastructure that you're talking about, you can't have a team go out there that's going to get belted each week either.
That's right. That's right. And that's what, I'm not floating this for the sake of causing drama for the NRL, but I'm just saying that there is certainly concern amongst all the stakeholders in the game of how this is going to work and how it's going to happen so soon.
It's all right to have that $600 million from Albo, but that doesn't build a footy club.
It does not. It doesn't. Well, it does. It's just going to take a lot of time.
Yes.
And it's as I said, the
board needs to be put in place ASAP.
But so Abdo said it's imminent. Well, when? I've hear that all the time. Rugby league just seems to bounce from one thing to another. It's the Bears one week, buying Super League here. We're going to take over America there. I'm getting angry. I'm firing up.
You wrote about this on Saturday and got me in a bit of trouble with that bloody spiel you had on their poor attempt to make the Olympic Games in 32. So just back off. Back off.
Oh, sorry for actually being one of the few journos
you
to
say
hold
I'm not impartial.
the NRL account.
Please do not say that I'm not impartial.
Well, I think I'm more impartial.
I do.
I'm more independent always.
Yeah.
Which dovetails beautifully into our next item in our Nudes of the Week segment. Buzz, you broke a story as we came on air, because you're just a little newsbreaker, just a little engine that could you are.
Yeah,
just won't stop. About our Herald colleague, Michael Chammas.
Yeah. Incredible.
What's happened?
Well,
tell us the story.
Chammy is a friend of mine, friend of yours, and a very, very capable senior journalist, and who sits on 100% footy. Every second week he rotates the chair with Danny Weidler. It was Chammas's turn on Monday night to appear on the show. Nine's producers rang Isaac Moses, manager of Mitchell Moses, to organise him to come onto the show. Not a problem, except Mitchell and the manager would not have Michael Chammas there as the journalist.
What?
So you know what Nine did? They bent over. They allowed this to happen, and Chammas was stood down from the show, and Danny Weidler reluctantly stepped in, and this is a mob.
That's very,
Nine Entertainment,
very poor.
Independent always. Your old mob. It is really, really poor, but again, this shows you the power of player managing this game of rugby league.
Yeah, I know, but it's weak as piss from Channel 9. Like, there's no way that should be allowed.
No.
Now, you know what? I can't. It's hard for me to talk about because I left the joint at the end of last year after many, many years, and I've got a lot of people that I love and respect that are still there. But it probably is a good indicator of why I'm no longer working in the joint. And the frustration that you can get there when you're a journalist trying to do your job. I mean, Chammas works his guts out. He's one of the hardest.
He's outstanding.
He chases like a greyhound. He's I think the only silver lining for Michael is that it just sort of disproves the theory that he's in Isaac Moses' pocket because Moses has speared him from being on the show. But I've got to say, if David Gingell was the CEO of that company, do you think that would happen?
No.
It's a terrible look for a
and try getting
for a
news
organisation.
You ring Simon Ford and one of their sports executives over there. You ring Riley Mackay, who's head of sport publicity. Try and get a call back from them. Try and get a text message back from them. I'll tell you something. If this had happened in the old days, when Ian Heads and Alan Clarkson and Peter Frelingos and Bill Morty and Ray Chestham were around, with a very strong and united Rugby League Writers Players Association. We'd meet once, twice, 3 times a year to discuss different issues that we face in our day-to-day job. If something like this had happened and a manager and a player had decided a television network to black ban one of our colleagues, there would have been an immediate ban thrown straight back at them that we as a group will no longer deal with this manager and the player.
Well, back in the day, at the Herald, we'd go on strike.
Yeah, well
that's terrible.
You blokes would go on strike over anything. The most militant bunch of independent always or independent sometimes.
Can you stop?
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not good.
It's terrible.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous.
But you know what's worse than Moses? What's worse than Moses? Channel 9 copying it.
I know. And you know what? I don't know why the NRL should step in. They're the host broadcaster. If I'm the NRL, I'm going, hang on, what's this? So player managers now decide who appears on football panels? That's bullshit.
Does Mitchell Moses think he's an NFL star? And we're in a game that's played on the eastern seaboard of Australia.
I'll give you a tip. He's not.
That's what I mean. Who do they think they are?
Mm.
How dare they? I'm so angry about it, and it's got nothing to do with me. I work for an opposition show, and I can guarantee you that Steve Crawley and Mitch Diffin, if an agent said that, get rid of Buzz, get rid of Reid, get rid of Webster, and we'll bring our
talent on.
You know what they'd say? Go and get stuffed. They would.
I reckon they'd say a stronger word. Speaking of stronger words, what about your blow up with Madge this week?
Yeah.
Come on, let's spill.
Look, mate, I was about to sit down for croissants and champagne and orange with my wife and kids for Mother's Day. And I texted Madge early, rang me back, and oh my God, what a waste of 15 minutes. So I just copped a gob for it. Sadly, it was all off the record. I will not go into what he said. It was very, very heavy, some of the stuff.
Really?
Yeah, it was. It was very, very heavy about what he'd walked into and found at the Broncos.
Right.
And some of the allegations he was making. But I hit back and I said, look, Madge, I'm sorry. I don't think you should have gone on the cruise. That's my opinion. I said, Madge, I don't believe you've come around to the more modern ways of preparing sides for a football season, that you burn them out. Look what happened to West Tigers. Look what happened at South. What would you friggin' all this sort of stuff? And I said, well, I've actually read a lot about it in the NFL and the EPL about great restrictions put on, preparing players out of competition. And he just did not want to listen. I left the conversation thinking, if this is the way he speaks to his football players, I can understand why he has disintegrating relationships with them.
So you've floated this on 360 this week. Do you think players are off him?
Yeah, I do.
Really?
I know they are.
Mm.
I don't know
big
how
claim,
many.
Buzz.
Yeah, I know it's a big claim. They didn't want to come down to Sydney a day early on a 5-day turnaround. So I said to Brent Reid, somewhere else, Wayne Bennett's telling people he won 6 titles up there over, 19, 20 years, however long he was there. Not once in game week did he take him out in a harbour cruise.
No, I know. Look, I've got to say, it's a bizarre sort of pre-game move.
You know, I got back to South, don't you?
Yeah.
And the South players discussed it.
And what did they think?
And they said the Broncos must think this is going to be a run in the park for them because they're out on a cruise.
I get it. Look, I'm not prepared to say Madge isn't going to work up there yet.
Neither am I.
No, but I understand. I know what his methods are like. And I remember sitting down with Madge in 2016. 15. Towards the end of 15 when so they won the comp in 2014. I remember Sam Burgess and Ben Teo both had left the club. They got tired of Madge's. He's what's the best way to put it? He's a hard ass. He does. He can be relentless. Yeah. And I remember sitting down with, and I was writing a lot of it in 2015, and there was quite a few players that weren't happy with his methodology. And one of those was actually Adam Reynolds, the halfback at South, and now, ironically, the halfback that he's got at the Broncos. And I remember Madge said to me, have you ever thought that maybe the players just aren't prepared to go to the level that they need to win a comp? And could that be at play at Brisbane?
Yeah, it could be.
And that's why he's got noses out of joint.
I think the bottom line is he's old school. And there's a need and requirement for all coaches. And I think Wayne Bennett and Craig Bellamy know this. And they put people around them who can sync with the new generation of footballer, who aren't Sattlers, there aren't Sam Burgesses, who aren't Teos who played on the edge and the Burgess,
Yeah.
And I don't think that's happening at the Broncos. And it's very hard to change the personalities of those boys in Brisbane. The bottom line is, 2 years ago, they were 4 minutes off winning a grand final. So I don't think you can just blame the players. It's a coach's job with a premiership-winning roster that he's got to present them game day ready to win, and he's not doing that.
Yeah. That said, going out on a harbour cruise a few days before a game of football is a bit of a cop-out for losing to a team like South, who are as undermanned as they are.
Oh, well.
I think.
There you go.
In my humble
Just because
opinion.
I bagged your chump, you're bagging my story.
I'm not bagging
Because
your story. I'm also prepared to say that I wish my team had plummeted to 7th on the ladder halfway through the year. Like, I mean, let's judge them at the end of the year.
Can I come back at that and say in the 3 years Kevin Walters was coaching that rugby league club, after 10 rounds, he was in a better position than Michael Maguire is.
So what?
But I'm just saying, he's taken them backwards.
Well, let's judge him. It's in his first year, Buzz.
Yeah, I know.
Let's judge him. Let's
That's
get
why
a
I'm
better
only giving
year.
you
Let's get a better feeling at the end of the year.
I can't give you a better stat. There's only been 10 weeks, and I'm telling you the first 10 weeks under the previous
I don't think
coach.
that's a relevant stat.
Oh, don't you?
No,
On
I don't
the eve
actually.
of Origin?
No.
Okay.
Let's just see how things are.
Well, I think you're irrelevant too sometimes.
Let's see how they are at the end of the year. No, sorry to interrupt while you sit there text messaging during our podcast.
Messaging Heath Kelly, who is my boss.
I don't have a boss. Let's change tack away from the NRL. Football Australia Chief Executive James Johnson, JJ, as I like to call him, he's resigned.
JJ.
He's resigned amid a fallout with the Matildas and also a $9 million loss.
And the sponsor.
And then they lost Subway as a sponsor.
Yep.
So they've gone from being a 12-inch to a 6-inch. Is that what it is? What do you reckon?
I think the game's in a world of pain, Webby. The shine's gone off the Matildas a little bit, haven't they, since the World Cup? We'll fall back in love with them, I'm sure, when they start winning regularly and find a full-time coach, and Mary and Sam reappear and, get over their ACLs. But the A-League here is in so much pain. I know FA don't run the A-League. Graham Arnold, the controversy around his departure, the game's a mess.
James Johnson never got on with Arnie at all.
With who, mate?
With Graham Arnold. He never got on with him at all. And then he, and then he's, then Arnie got them to a World Cup. Got them to a World Cup, but got them, deeper than they've ever gone in a FIFA World Cup. They've had a hugely successful Women's World Cup, which James Johnson and particularly the media types around him just kept saying that he was the one who got the bid over the line, which is just absolute rubbish.
I was actually...
But there's been a deeper fallout with the Matildas and with Sam Kerr between the front office and that team. And that's, they're the best promotion for that sport in this country at the moment. That's something you cannot have.
The only promotion.
The only promotion, but also the $9 million loss is like, how does that happen? That's double what they had at during COVID.
And he did not deliver the Women's World Cup. I was in Russia, in Moscow, when David Gallop and his senior executive staff left a function to go and meet with FIFA heavyweights. That's where they launched the bid to get it here. They had Frank Lowy, Stephen Lowy. Yeah.
Yep, and the Prime Minister of the day, Malcolm Turnbull, was actually quite big
for your man JJ to be claiming that is wrong. He will come back though.
He was never my man.
I'm getting mail that he's going to come back in quite another prominent sporting role.
With whom?
I don't know. I don't know.
I thought he was in line for the Australian Olympic Committee job, and I called him and he denied it.
Well, there you go.
There you go. Righto, Buzz. War stories. And not just this is a pleasant one. Tell us about your relationship with Jack Gibson.
Yeah, I will, because I'm a bit over telling the story about what was it, Greg Inglis and Sterling and
all your fights.
Yeah, all the fights.
We haven't done the Sterlo one yet.
Yeah,
we could just do one of your pick off a few that you've had over your 50 years. We could just fill every hour with so much hate.
Yeah, good on you. Jack Gibson has played a huge part in my career, and I just want to give you a couple of anecdotes here. And basically started in 1981 when he took Parra to the grand final. And that week he dropped Steve Sharp, the second row forward from the team. And no mobiles. Obviously, I rang Steve Sharp at home and I said, how do you feel? He said, I feel shit, and really upset, been there all year. I said, is this going to make you think about your future? He said, yeah, of course it does, And I don't think there were managers around then. And, I'm just so upset. So back page the next day was Sharp's, threat to quit, which he'd said. But anyway, he got to training the next night and denied it.
Oh, good.
And Jack, spoke to the media and said, look, the story's wrong. And, and I had nothing but my notebook and my notes, didn't have a tape recorder then. And so anyway, Jack never rang me, but I rang him at home down in Cronulla. And he said to me when I rang, he said, it's in your favour you've rung, Philly, that, I hadn't tried to dodge him or anything. And I explained the circumstances and he said, look, the kid's under pressure, I don't know who's telling the bloody truth, but it's in your favour you won. And from that phone call that I'd rung him when we were in a crisis and, we just got on. Mm. We just became really, really good friends. And I actually, for towards 10 years, I reckon, when I moved to Cronulla, about every second or third morning, I walked the Esplanade with Jack. He had his dog, Taylor, named after Paul Taylor, the fullback.
Yep.
We just gibbered and chatted and talked life, talked sport. He'd finished coaching by then. And, mate, I learnt more on those walks than I have from anyone else in my entire career. And I treasure those days in that it is now impossible, the way the media has become, to have a relationship like that anymore. He was so good to me, Webby. One of the first big scoops I broke was when Ron Gibbs walked out on Manly mid-year to sign with the Gold Coast Titans. And that was Jack. It was a massive story. They're holding banners up on the hill, give back Terry Randall's jersey. Mm. So I'll tell you just very quickly. Mm. It's about 6:30 at night, 7 o'clock deadline. The league rise had gone home, empty back page. We had nothing. I ring Jack and I said, Jack, can you help? I'm stuffed. There's nothing. And he said, I'm having tea, Philly. I'll ring you back. So anyway, I hope he knows I'm at friggin' deadline. So anyway, the phone goes. He said, you got a pen? And I said, yeah. And he said, Mortimer to Penrith, Dorry to West or Wollongong or whatever he said. He said, Gibbs to the Gold Coast. I said, turn up, Jack, how can I write? How's Gibbs going to the Gold Coast? He said, I hope I haven't wasted the call. Go chase. So Peter Muscat had just started as the Gold Coast CEO. You remember Peter Muscat? Journo?
Yeah.
Journo. So I thought, the only way I'm going to get this is bluff him. So I rang up Muscat, right? He picked up, he said, hey, mate. I said, what about you? You got Ronnie Gibbs, you good thing. She said, fuck, who told you? Who told you? I said, that's all I need, mate. See you later. So I printed it on the back, won the Rugby League Writers Award, and I sent Jack a bottle of scotch.
Beautiful.
But he was as interested in helping young people forging a career, succeed as he was in his footballers succeeding.
Yeah, wow. I never knew Jack. I never knew him. I never knew him at all because it was before my time. Mm. But I the only time I got to see Jack was so around the 2008 Team of the Century, and was obvious that he was going to be named the coach of the century. And there'd been, I always think about Jack. There was so much respect for him, and maybe still a bit of fear that everyone knew about his dementia. but no one was prepared to write about it or talk about his health at all. And I wanted to write a tribute piece to him, but also touching on his health. So I went to Ian Heads, who had ghosted his books for him, and I wrote a letter. And his suggestion was write a letter to Judy Gibson and the family saying what you wanted to do. And I wrote the letter, sent it to them, and I was stunned as anyone when they called. And I went down to his place there at
Cowra Place.
Cowra Place, and interviewed them. And then just before I was about to file the story, she said, "Do you want to come and see him?" So I went down to the Garrawara Centre. Down there in the Southern Shire,
and dementia sufferers, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he was not good, Jack. He was very, but I'll never forget. I
asked you last week about the great stories you've written. This one was up there.
This was one of the greats. This is the one I loved. I got most satisfaction out, and I shook his hand, and he because he was like such a strong bastard, and he grabbed hold of my hand. I couldn't get the hand back because he was he was so strong, and you could just see that there was light still in him, and I just the way that Judy sort of cared for him, and then he passed away. Obviously on that night to the test match, and out of that, I there was so many great stories about Jack, and he was such a big figure that I wrote a biography on him.
Yes,
that was the first book I wrote, Super Coach, and I got to know the Gibson family so much better, and also just all the great stories about Jack. But that to me, that was always the great the biggest highlight of my career was working on that book. But he was a legend, Jack. Former SP, standover man, self-made. One minute he'd buy Judy a car and then lose it all the money on the punt, and then he'd have to take it and trade it in, and they did it tough. But he was an absolute
finished
legend.
Up very, very, very wealthy man. Living in that beautiful house overlooking Bundoona and Port Hacking, and
beautiful.
Helped a lot of people. But look, I'm glad the war stories we're going to talk about, our mates as well.
Our good things.
Yeah, and
our good moments.
I want to explain to people it hasn't always been this very, sterile relationship with football. One night before a State of Origin game, Gavin Miller, captain New South Wales, and he's bored in his room, rang me up and said, "Come and have a game of cards." That's how tight we were with these guys. I used to regularly go out with Brandy Alexander, MG, and John Cartwright to the nightclub at Penrith, who were a similar age, coming up through the ranks. And sadly, it doesn't happen anymore, Webby. There's no trust.
I miss it. I miss that part of it.
Well, you look at your relationship with the Johns boys and many other people you don't publicise.
Braith was at my birthday on.
What a great man!
We
got to get him on here one day.
We will get him on. But I mean, I remember I covered Braith all the way through his sort of career, and I lived in the eastern suburbs, and I remember. People wouldn't understand. This just shows you. This is why I love covering rugby league, because there's so many knockabout blokes. I remember, early on in my career there, and Braith, he was early. We're talking about probably 04. And I was at the Chloe on a Saturday afternoon, unsurprisingly, in those days. And and he walked in. I was waiting for my mates. I was on my own, and he was there with a bunch of other footballers and mates of his. And he said, "Mate, just come over and drink with me." Players wouldn't do that these days.
No.
Some would, but it's few and far between.
Yeah.
And I understand it. I understand why there's
It's also real sanctioned now.
It is very.
You can go through the manager, but the manager wants to get a tick off from the club PR person. Obviously the ones you're closer to, you go direct to, but I love those old days, Webby.
Yeah, they're gone forever. They're gone forever. Yeah, well, nostalgic now, Buzz.
Oh, well, there you go.
Okay, we're into our fearless forecasts, our last segment of the show. We're going to talk Origin.
Yep.
Because Laurie Daly and Billy Slater named their teams for Origin 1 on, will it be Sunday or Monday? Monday, do they?
Well, there's the late game on Sunday night.
Of course.
So there's a 6:20 kickoff or something. So
Will you be frantically trying to find out the team and who's been selected?
I will. Yeah, we all will. It's always a mad Sunday afternoon, that one, because they start ringing the players and say, pack your bags, get into camp, and it leaks around, you know.
What's your forecast? We're not going to name our teams.
Everyone
out there's got their who their teams are. I don't think we have to bore you guys with it. But
Buzz, I haven't got a forecast, but I've got some advice for Ali Cherry Evans. I think he should stand down. I think he should show everything he's got at the Manly Seagulls. I think his decision about just for round 4, they've lost 4 of the last 5 games since, has just about wrecked their campaign. Players there are off him. I think he owes it to that club. He's an immortal there. He's been there 15 years. I just think, and I got a whole list of players. I rang David Middleton and I said, mate, players often, don't they, you know, the back end of their careers, put their clubs first and retire from rep footy. He gave me some names: Ettinghausen, Fittler, Tallis, Webke, Johns, Lyon, Thurston, Cronk, Cameron Smith, Whiten. I just think he might owe it to Manly. That's just my view. And Queensland, that's if they pick him anyway, because Tom Dearden's going great at the Cows and can play halfback, and Munster at 5'8". I just think it'd be the right thing to do. That's just my view.
Yeah, but he won't.
He's 36 years of age.
I'm aware, but he won't. He's not going to send himself down. The big question is whether they pick him. Will they?
He's the captain.
Yeah.
He is the captain, but Jake Trbojevic is the captain of New South Wales too.
Yeah, it's interesting that they both play for the same team, and both, you know, the doubts about whether they should be picked or not. Obviously, Jake more than probably DCE, but yeah,
it's funny. I mentioned this to Brett Reid, and he said to me, the players at Manly are probably hoping he keeps going. He'll be out of there here
for a few weeks. Yeah. Meow. This is a bit of a fearless forecast. I'd be having Pappenhausen on the bench.
It's not that fearless.
It's
I think
not really
it's a
fearless,
great idea.
It? Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. He's played 14 at Melbourne whenever he returns from injury.
Flying.
And you don't put him in a position. He's like a rover.
Can't beat speed. Imagine that against tiring defence.
Oh, unbelievable. Who else we got at 14? That's the problem. Connor Watson got the job done last year, playing sound at the Roosters. You've also got Matt Burton, can play centre, 5'8". He can play anywhere. He can play on an edge.
He can kick the ball.
Going enormous.
He's got some questions. Laurie's got some questions ahead of him, doesn't he?
I tell you why there's huge pressure on Laurie.
Why?
Because he's the defending champion, New South Wales. So there's only one way he can take this football side. If he won, he's just done what Madge has done. But the talent we have available, and I'll tell you, Webby, I might even do a column on it, once they've picked this side. If we picked a New South Wales B side afterwards with your man Pappenhausen at fullback or Ted Tedesco at fullback, mate, it'd still be a sensational side.
Oh, yeah, they've got depth.
Serious.
Well, remember that. I'll tell you what, when Laurie was coached last time, notwithstanding 2017 when they should have won that series, but I mean, he would love the depth that he has now when he was coaching the first time against those great Queensland sides.
The fact he won one series against that side,
that's the best rep side
I've ever seen.
Yeah, 100%. And New South Wales tackled their way to that Origin series. So he's got some big questions. Who's your 5'8"? Who's your 5'8"?
I'm going to go Jerome Luai because I want Cleary, Luai, Isaiah Yeo and Dylan Edwards around the same area of the football field, passing the football to Stephen Crichton and Latrell Mitchell.
I want Mitchell Moses because I just want to see what happens if Chammas goes towards him to try and ask a question.
Yeah.
Right, Buzz, that's it. How'd we go?
It's been good. No, you went well. You've been on your phone the whole time. No, I've been returning messages.
I can tell. Maybe
outside of your,
maybe if you can give us your undivided attention
outside
next
of
time,
your chump that just I did not care about one iota. I think you've performed well.
Yeah, well, that's good. I don't really care about anything you say. One iota.
How do you finish up?
Hey?
Finish this up.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to me. As for Buzz, I don't really give a shit. But you can follow, subscribe, and engage with us on socials. Find us at Off The Record Podcast on Instagram. And please subscribe to us on YouTube at Off The Record Podcast. Thanks, Buzz.
Thank you, Webby.
Thanks,
Loved
listeners.
it as always.
Thank you, listeners. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.